Joining us right now is outgoing Boston Public Schools Superintendent, Dr. Brenda Cassellius. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. We appreciate it.
So glad to be here with you, Paula.
Yeah. First and foremost, what are your thoughts on the deal reached between the Boston Public Schools and the state to avoid the district being designated as underperforming?
Well, I have always welcomed a strong partnership with the state. It's going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach here, turning around our Boston Public Schools, and just so glad that we were able to get the agreement done and really focus our efforts on those things that we couldn't quite get to in the pandemic, and looking forward to the next superintendent picking up the great foundation that we've laid and be able to move forward.
Sure. Some of the items in the agreement involve providing targeted financial support, making sure that special education is addressed, creating a team for that, and responding better to parent safety complaints, and hiring an independent auditor to ensure accurate data compliance for the district. So I do want to play something for you. WBZ's John Keller asked Mayor Michelle Wu about 2 weeks ago, what needs to happen to improve the Boston school system? Listen here to what she said.
With our schools, as with every other challenge in the city, what I've seen in my first 6 months now on the job is that the barriers are not financial. They're not for lack of expertise or knowing what to do or what we need to do. It is primarily organizational. And we have here with the Boston Public Schools and many parts of our city organization, but with BPS especially, a very large organization that needs a sense of predictability and direction and cohesiveness to make real progress. It's like turning a big ship.
So, Dr. Cassellius, having heard what the mayor had to say, you've spent 3 years as superintendent here. What's the problem? What needs to be done to improve the Boston Public Schools?
Well, it is a big ship. So Mayor Wu is right. There are many systems within this district that I identified coming in that needed attention in terms of making sure that the right hand and the left hand were always talking to one another. And then the pandemic hit, and of course that was a very difficult situation of having to adjust. And so I think now taking the focus on the systemic level work is really critically important for the next superintendent and the mayor in identifying those barriers. Part of that is going to be establishing the risk management office that I had tried to establish 2 years ago, which looks at identifying risk and then putting in place the controls and the continuous improvement strategies to be able to get what our students need.
Sure. And, you know, as John Keller pointed out to the mayor, some of these problems have been going on for decades, things that needed to be fixed. Commissioner Riley had talked about the central office needing to be fixed. And what you describe, as well as the mayor, are kind of bureaucratic issues. Do they need to clean house there?
Well, I think that there are very talented, incredible people here at the central office, as well as in our schools, our educators, our school leaders. And it really is just systems level pieces of making sure that people are working in tandem together around a strong strategic direction. The mayor has a bold vision. I look forward to her working with the next superintendent to ensure that those things are put in place and the central office team is working cohesively together, like she said.
Yeah, because it is rare, let's be honest, for a big city school system to have a political leader say money's not the problem. It's not that the system's budget has been neglected, or expertise. We have some of the greatest teachers here in Massachusetts, but that this is organizational. What do you think the next superintendent should tackle first?
Well, money does matter, and we were very blessed that former Mayor Walsh and the City Council at that time gave Boston Public Schools $100 million, or we would be in probably a whole world of hurt. So we are very blessed to have that, as well as Mayor Kim Janey and Mayor Wu adding to that budget and securing that funding so that we could have social workers, counselors, psychologists, and family liaisons, and make sure that students are supported. So I think that that focus is really critical to provide the kind of supports that we need. Our students are about 80% high need, and so having those supports and having those resources are absolutely critical.
You were the state education commissioner in Minnesota. You've spent 3 years here in Boston as superintendent. What are some of the issues you feel proud of that you accomplished during your time here?
Oh, well, I'm really happy that students will be drinking clean water in cool rooms, cool classrooms, but I'm also really just proud of the quality guarantee that we've been putting in place here in Boston Public Schools, as well as the strong work that we are doing around facilities and our academic rigor that we're putting in place with the graduation requirements, so the diploma means something. Those are things I'm pretty proud of.
Right. It's interesting in this agreement, an independent data auditor who will report to all parties, right, to the mayor, to the superintendent, the school system, DESE, will be in place to make sure that decisions are made on target. What would you like to see that auditor be able to report in the next year?
Well, I think that the partnership is going to be a really good one. And, once the risk management office is up, that office will be responsible for looking at where there is risk and being able to report out all of the achievement that students are doing and just the processes that we're doing. A lot of that around the funding systems that we have within the school district, as well as the building projects that we have with the Mayor's Green New Deal.
Sure. You talked about building projects. You talked about some improvements that took place. What about transportation? There were so many issues with on-time bus issues and transportation for children all over the city. How do you think that can best be addressed moving forward?
So this is something that we really worked on all 3 years. And, I feel good about the operational changes that we've been able to make with our team with routing. We just got that big deal with our drivers, which is great. And that will take care of some of the attendance issues. But what's facing Boston is what's facing all of our school districts across the nation, and that is a labor shortage. And so it will be critical that Boston Public Schools is doing aggressive hiring for our bus drivers. If we have a full fleet of bus drivers, we will absolutely have meet our on-time bus targets for next year.
Right. We certainly have come through such a challenging last few years during the pandemic. I know you had talked about, when we did an interview, getting toward the end of the school closures, the need for mental health in the public schools, counselors that would be there for students. What is your message to parents as you move on and their children are moving on in school after what was, for many of them, a very traumatic time? What would you like parents to know?
Well, first, I want to thank our parents. We could not have gotten through these past several years without their incredible support and partnership. And I think that what I share with them is just to be patient. All the emotions that their children feel are valid. It is a difficult time in our history here in our nation coming out of this pandemic, and that recovery may take a little bit longer than what they think or what they anticipate. So just being patient with their children and validating their emotions and helping them to recover from this pandemic.
What's your message to the Boston Public School teachers and staff about their responsibility to parents and families now?
So our teachers, our educators, our school leaders, our central office team, our food nutrition team, and our amazing custodians and facility team have just been incredible during this time. And my message to them is a pretty simple one: get some rest this summer, restore, and get ready for this next fall and school year, and be grateful. And we are all thankful to you for your incredible perseverance the past 3 years.
And you certainly have supported your staff all 3 years that you've been here in Boston. Boston Public School Superintendent Brenda Cassellius, thank you so much for the time, for speaking with me now and throughout your tenure. We appreciate your availability, and good luck to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.